I think the actual conduct need not be the agency. In fact, uh, the uh, the desirable or uh, the desirable way of doing it is to have uh, a third party do the actual evaluation. Of course, the call to evaluate a particular project or program can come from the agency concerned, or it may come from the Department of Budget and Management, depending on how important a particular kind of project is in the government's scheme of priorities. Not every project needs to be evaluated, but perhaps the uh, the government, or the DBM probably, or the agency concerned may draw up a list of candidate projects to evaluate, and based on the importance, the availability of data, and certain other considerations that could affect the feasibility of the conduct of the evaluation, would be taken into consideration. I think Manny was making some.
Yeah, thanks. No, I agree. I actually agree with that. I think that there are basically three main functions that I think a central unit could do. So not all countries have a central unit. Sometimes they allow each and every ministry to conduct, which is fine, I think. And in this case, the SWD, for example, took the lead. The only issue that you need to worry about there is that it may be that the ministries or the government agencies that actually need evaluation won't actually volunteer to do it. So in a country like Canada, for example, the Treasury Board, the equivalent of DBM, requires every agency to do the evaluations, and they monitor all of it. They don't conduct it themselves, but they require that it be done, perhaps by third parties, in a credible way. The other thing that can be done centrally that I mentioned that Mexico and South Africa do is they make sure they coordinate. Because as Vic said, evaluations can be costly. You sometimes have to prioritize. You need a central agency. And the third important role is that, money talks. So if DBM is the keeper of the amounts of money that is required, then I think the agencies are more likely to pay attention. So that's just my view. Just quickly on the other methodological point, and I'm sure Babes might have something to say about this, is that, so sometimes you actually have to evaluate a program after it's already been implemented. And what you have to do there is rely on more statistical techniques and make sure you have the right comparator. And then you have to do a retrospective of what it might have been like before. It's imperfect, but I think that it can be done, and it has been done. So, Babe, I don't know if you have anything to add.
Okay, I think Yamani was talking about that. The only recourse that you have for the projects already ongoing is a quasi-experimental. So the problem really that is the identifying your counterfactual. So one example, I think even ADB has a lot of resources, does evaluation after the fact. I'd like to emphasize that this will be a weaker design. But of course, if you cannot have the first best, the second best is that. So, like in a case of if you were asked to evaluate microfinance projects for ADB, it's good that the project is still ongoing. So we still have a pipeline that we can use as people who have been identified but have not received that's an ongoing project. That's one. The other thing that you can do is, most people will think that evaluation is only for evaluation of all projects. But I think from our experience, the more important one is evaluation of very specific components of projects. That has to be which are very important and usually is a major component of many other projects that you will be doing in the future. Like training, for instance. It's all part of it. Maybe, or some of the project components might not have been implemented yet. So, and you would expect that this component would likely be part of any other future projects. Maybe you can concentrate on specific components to evaluate rather than the whole projects to evaluate. I think the other question that was asked is, should we, I think you answered it. Should we evaluate it before we fund? I think there's a very, that's a double-edged question actually. So, but the best perhaps that DBM, which we don't have, can do is read up on evaluations of other. Of course, as Vic has already mentioned, what might be true in other countries but not here. So there are, that would be the best way for DBM who doesn't, or doesn't have the luxury of a literature of evaluations, solid rigorous evaluations for all projects proposed by government. Government cannot stop its services waiting for an evaluation. That's one thing that we should realize. But we should make use of, I think what DBM can do is let your people review all of the evaluations. This kind of design doesn't work, so maybe that because of, so you don't fund that. So that would be the best strategy that perhaps the DBM can do. I think the UC Lampagos tell us what do we do when we decide that this will be funded. It will be funded. We can't stop it anymore. But do we know? How do we know that this project is worth funding? So basically, that was the question that was posed to us. So I think that would be. There are a lot of studies already. I think PIE is full of studies on very specific interventions that you can refer to, and clearly tells you that this design doesn't work or has not worked in many situations. So maybe you should hesitate in funding that. I think that is right.
I'd just like to add a couple of points. The first one is that, as exemplified by the conditional cash transfers program, it started, well, it looked at the experience of Mexico, Colombia, and Brazil, and which were evaluated rigorously, and then developed a pilot program here in the Philippines. So it was a new program, in a sense revolutionary, given the traditional way of doing social assistance. But it did not immediately go big time. It started small, fund it, and then pilot it, and then do some evaluation, and then scale it up. But it was a measured scaling up. So the DSWD included the baseline data and did some an impact evaluation design that used the RCT methodology for credibility. And then when they found that it had more or less similar results as what was experienced in other countries, then they ramp it up very rapidly. So that's while we cannot do all the government expenditures and programs and projects like this, but where you have the possibility exists, then my recommendation to go for it. Start small. as Babe was saying, look at the literature, look at the experience, experiment, pilot it, and then do a good impact evaluation, and then depending on the results, wrap it up, or if it did not pan out as expected, then close it. You don't lose too much from failure.